It seems that NASA is not quite satisfied with SpaceX's Starlink technology. Starlink's ultimate goal is to provide internet service to countless citizens, but it is also becoming a reason for asteroids hitting the Earth. Want to know more? Let's find out. Hey guys, welcome back to our channel Elon Musk World, where we tell you all the latest news about Elon Musk and his multi-billion-dollar companies. In today's video, we are going to tell you about how Elon Musk strikes the US Space Agency by accusing SpaceX over a huge asteroid that may hit Earth due to SpaceX's numerous Starlinks in low Earth orbit. But before we get started, make sure you subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any of our incredible videos. Elon Musk, the billionaire entrepreneur, is probably best known for his electric car company Tesla and his space exploration company SpaceX. Perhaps you only know him as one of the world's wealthiest people. A company called Starlink, which hopes to sell internet connections to practically anybody on the Earth via an expanding network of private satellites floating overhead, may be less familiar to you. There are some issues with Starlink. The influence of Starlink's low Earth orbit satellites on night sky vision has been raised by members of the scientific community. It's no secret that in recent years, expanding satellite constellations have wreaked havoc on astronomical measurements. The US Space and Science Agency is concerned about SpaceX's projected 30,000 satellite second-generation Starlink constellation, claiming it might result in a substantial increase in potential low Earth orbit collisions and interference with space science missions. The agency expressed concern about the potential to interrupt space and ground-based telescopes, as well as its launch schedules, in a letter to the US Federal Communications Commission, or FCC. With the increase in large constellations proposals to the FCC, NASA has concerns with the potential for a significant increase in the frequency of conjunction events and possible impacts to agency's science and human spaceflight missions, said the letter. Approximately 6,100 of the 25,000 objects currently being tracked on orbit have a perigee, or point nearest to Earth, of less than 600 kilometers, according to the space agency. SpaceX's design for a larger second-generation constellation will increase traffic congestion over the Earth's orbit by more than 5 times the number of tracked objects in low Earth orbit. An increase of this magnitude into these confined altitude bands inherently brings additional risk of debris-generating collision events based on the number of objects alone, the letter stated. NASA also questioned SpaceX claims there was no risk of collision with large objects because of Starlink satellites' maneuverability. Starlink is a satellite constellation operated by Elon Musk's SpaceX that consists of 4,408 satellites in orbit approximately 550 kilometers or 340 miles to give internet access from space. It currently has over 2,000 satellites in orbit that track satellites in orbit as well as other space-related activities. A Falcon 9 rocket launched 49 Starlink satellites from US Space Agency's Kennedy Space Center in Florida recently. But SpaceX acknowledged that up to 40 of them failed their orbit-raising efforts due to increased drag caused by a geomagnetic storm above Earth. When they re-entered the atmosphere, they would be burned. Unfortunately, the satellites deployed were significantly impacted by a geomagnetic storm, SpaceX said in a statement. Preliminary analysis shows that increased drag at the low altitudes prevented the satellites from leaving safe mode to begin orbit-raising maneuvers, and up to 40 of the satellites will re-enter or already have re-entered the Earth's atmosphere. When a burst of solar wind, charged particles from the sun, collides with Earth's magnetic field, it generates charged particles and currents in the upper atmosphere, causing geomagnetic storms. The surge warms the upper atmosphere and raises atmospheric density to the point that satellites in low Earth orbit may suffer enough drag to send them tumbling back to Earth. The satellites were subjected to a geomagnetic storm caused by solar wind ejected by a coronal mass ejection, a solar eruption, on January 30th. The 49 SpaceX satellites began orbiting the Earth as near as 130 miles or 210 kilometers after launch. The satellite's low Earth orbit was designed to make them easily disposable in the case of a past launch mishap, but it has also made them vulnerable to the geomagnetic storms. The storm caused atmospheric drag to rise up to 50% greater than during previous launches, according to the satellite's GPS sensors, according to SpaceX. As a result, the satellites were ordered to fly edge-on to take refuge from the storm like a sheet of paper. This edge-on orientation attempted to slow the satellite's rapid descent by reducing the surface area of the satellites traveling through the atmosphere. NASA has warned that SpaceX plans to launch 30,000 more Starlink satellites and may wreak havoc for science missions, human spaceflight, the Hubble Space Telescope, and ground-based telescopes that monitor asteroids that could collide with the Earth. According to the space agency, around 8% of composite images acquired by the Hubble Space Telescope are impacted by satellites captured during exposures while the Hubble orbits at 535 kilometers. This proposed Starlink license update covers 10,000 satellites within or above Hubble's orbital range, potentially doubling the number of Hubble images degraded. The severity of degradation will worsen, Space and Science Agency added. NASA said it has approximately 14 Earth-observing missions and that SpaceX's planned altitudes for the 30,000 satellites are lower than most of the space vehicles used in these missions. That raises the potential for sun glint and reflections from the Starlink spacecraft to cause impacts to those missions' measurements. The space agency then explained that it uses wide-field, ground-based telescopes to survey for asteroids that may potentially crash to Earth and cause devastation, and that these telescopes occasionally identify satellite streaks in their images that could interfere with or mask asteroid detections. The U.S. Space Agency has stated that it aims to address this issue of spacecraft and laser parameters, including deployed dimensions, communications plans, ground segment expansion, orbital spacing, and deployment timeline. This will help NASA's missions by providing a detailed review of risks and repercussions, as well as a mitigated strategy. The agency did not express any oppositions to the expansion plan, but suggested that SpaceX collaborate with NASA to demonstrate the proposed satellite auto-maneuvering capability with increasing volumes of satellites prior to each successful launch, so that it may troubleshoot any issues that arise and make adjustments as necessary. Collisions in orbit have become increasingly likely in recent years as governments and commercial firms rush to launch hundreds of satellites in massive constellations for communications, weather forecasting, and military purposes, resulting in more space debris than ever before. China's National Space Administration announced last month that one of its scientific satellites had a very perilous contact with orbital debris created when Russia detonated one of its aging satellites in November. China sent a verbal note, an unassigned communication that is less formal than a diplomatic note, to the UN in December, complaining about near encounters in July and October when Starlink satellites approached the Tangyang station in orbit, a claim Musk has refuted. According to a message addressed to the UN Office of Outer Space Affairs in Vienna on January 28th, the US has also dismissed Beijing's claim, claiming that neither of the incidents mentioned by China constituted an emergency. Starlink is the name of SpaceX's growing network or constellation of orbital satellites. It is technically a division within SpaceX. The first prototype satellites were sent into orbit in 2018, after the network construction began in 2015. According to the space agency, the Starlink concept may have an impact on launches. Agency's letter stated that SpaceX is proposing 20,000 additional Starlink satellites in the 328 or 360 kilometer altitude range, which is below the ISS and is a regular phasing height for ISS visiting vehicles. The proposed volume of autonomously maneuvering satellites directly parked in common phasing altitudes could result in potential loss of launch entry opportunities impacting science and utilization for ISS. We sincerely hope you enjoyed the video. If so, give it a like and share with your friends and family. Let us know if you have any questions or comments in the section below. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel to see more of our incredible videos. You can also watch our other videos that have been especially selected for you. We look forward to seeing you in our next video.